Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. We're going to record this so that we can push it into our Facebook group. My name is Brian Lazar. I'm the founder of Bonus Up as well as Ninja VA. I'm also a Conquer coach, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm joined here with Keith Wagshall, who is our lead developer at Bonus Up. And Bonus Up has been a labor of love for a number of years now. It started out as we were kind of scratching our own itch, being that we were in the home service industry ourselves. And we felt like we just needed something to give us a little bit more perspective on how our individual technicians, as well as how our business was functioning in the moment. Fast forward 3 years later, we're to the point now where it's become quite an elaborate product. And we're about to iterate two more times here until we're getting to the point of being feature complete. And today is one of those iterations. So it's situated around the concept of instead of having to worry about the classic shift entry, we've come up with an API for Housecall Pro, which is going to be our first CRM that we're integrating with. Followed by that, we're going to be integrating with Jobber, which is has a huge following behind it. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're really we're attacking the biggest root problem that our users have faced in the course of using the product. Ordinarily, I think everyone can, the takeaway is standard that like the product gives good value, it gives good insight, it helps you to manage better. But at the end of the day, there is that little bit of burden when it comes to that inputting. And, when things get busy in our day-to-day lives or with our businesses, it can be really one of those things that's just a bit of a struggle to maintain. And that's why we've really focused a huge amount of energy in the last few months creating this API integration. And Keith has done a wonderful job of constructing this and creating it in a very eloquent way where it will serve to minimize your requirement in terms of managing and maintaining the system, but also it's done in a fairly intuitive way. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Keith here. Keith, do you have any words? And then maybe you can do a bit of a screen capture there.
Yeah, I think the only thing to note is the Housecall Pro integration is available to Pro users only. So you have to be able to generate your own API key. At that point, once you've put your API key into Bonus Up, it's as simple as loading every single day. So we do not have, at this point, a thing where it's automatically going and fetching and creating the shifts and doing that without you ever touching it. There's a real concern to that just because the computer takes its best guess, but whether everything is always correct in your CRM, whether all the timesheets people are using is always correct, it's worth always having at least a 15-second look over to make sure things still look right in your business, because this is how you're running your business, how you're paying your guys. So we want you to look at it. Even if it's just a quick 30-second, everything looks great. With Housecall Pro, they do not have timesheets open to us, so we're not able to get a clock in, clock out time for the day from Housecall Pro. That's something that they have on their radar. We've requested, and they have not opened up to us at this point. They have said if anyone is using their timesheets to put in a pro vote to opening up the API connection for us. If you are using Bonus Up, the app, to track people's time, we do import that and create the shifts with those times that your guys are tracking. So that's about it. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. We do have a couple of alpha users on it. They've been using it for a couple weeks now. So I will just go ahead and share my screen and just show you basically what it looks like here. All right, so hopefully you can see that, and it's a shift entry that doesn't look exactly like what you've seen before. It's as simple as, again, just going to shift entry, but now we're going to select a date. It goes to the Housecall Pro and pulls in all your jobs for all your people. It pulls in, again, with this, we're using start and end times from the Bonus Up app and is creating those shifts. One of the things you're going to notice right off the bat is that we're doing a shift per person. So each person is individually related. And again, we can have the same job across. We try and line them up so you can see easily if multiple people are on the same job. In terms of editing things, if the times are not quite right, it's a simple drag. We can see if things are multiple day. And again, when we change something, it's giving you the warning, hey, we've altered things. Let's reload our day and check what our productivity is. So now we're seeing that productivity for the company as a whole and that revenue for the company as a whole, as well as the productivity and bonus amounts per person. Additionally, if you do have anything going on where you're needing to split a job into pieces that's in your CRM as one part, we can always go into the job and view it entirely by line item. And we can see each line item. And if we want to remove those line items off of the job, we can remove those line items and use the job as it is like that. So this is it. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot more to say about it. Most of my 2 onboards I've done so far were about what I've done to this point, and they went ahead and started using it. We do have the ability, of course, to add people. If you had somebody that wasn't on the day, we can check the CRM for missed shifts, or we can pull a person and add an empty shift or copy someone's existing shift as well. So if somebody's not lined up in Housecall Pro and in Bonus Up correctly, we always have that opportunity to go back to the CRM and make sure everything's up to date. So that's all I have for
so the
basic
default
usage.
state of this is really, it's pulling all of this from Housecall Pro. Again, the one awkward exception here with Housecall Pro, which seems to exist with them and no one else, because for Jobber it's made available, is that start and end time. So essentially we'll just have to go in and either set a default or go in and quickly modify those start and end times. I think you created it so you can tab over, can't you there, Keith? Through the start and end times?
I'm not sure if tab over is working in this version that I have for the demo right now.
That was going to be the option though, or the idea behind it. And I think for the most part here, the takeaway is this gets you like 95% of the way there. If you ever have to revert back to classic shift entry mode, you can absolutely do that. But what it is taking is it's pulling all the job information, all the line items, all the values, all the amounts, and it's even syncing up with the technicians that you have set up inside of your Housecall Pro account with the technicians that you have inside of Bonus Up. Once it creates that connection, then it's going to recognize that technician going forward. Any questions at this point from anyone? Yes, Dave.
Yes, is this available with Service Monster guys, or is that to be decided later?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we pulled our user base and
am I on?
Yeah, you're coming. It's a little bit laggy, but you're coming in. So we pulled our user base, and the vast majority, we're talking like 75% of people use either Housecall Pro or Jobber at this point. The next one in line would be the customer factor. Unfortunately, we've reached out consistently to the customer factor, and if anyone has a direct line for Steve, apparently Steve's the man, but he's not returning our calls, and we'd love to API with with customer factor. The next one on the list would be Service Monster there, Dave. So hopefully that answered your question. Unfortunately, it's not great news in the short term.
Yeah,
but I think in the medium and long term,
that's okay.
That's the idea for sure.
Gotcha.
Can you explain the charge codes and how those would work now, and assigning those, and then the multi-day jobs, like how that works with this?
Yeah, so in terms of charge codes, it's going to default to a charge code. You can, of course, change it to something else, and that'll change it across the day for all those on the day. It takes its best guess for charge code at this point, based on the person. We'll probably at some point in the future also add in a based on the be able to link if this line item, then that. You get into a very messy thing with how different people do different things. So it's a single click and go and change whatever charge code you want to use. In terms of multiple day work, particularly around Housecall Pro and how it handles segmented jobs. So when we go to Housecall Pro, we say, hey, give me job 4545. Now give me any other segments to job 4545 and give me to them all together. And what it'll end up creating is just a list of the different line items and a list of linked line items if there's unlinked line items. It's going to go and choose the job name by default the first time. So again, when you do -2, it's going to go and say, hey, does -2 exist? Yes, it's linked to this original one, and it's going to automatically match that to today. So this Hashimoto has shifts on other days. So this is a segmented job, and it goes and just links it back to that original base job. And again, if for some reason you have something where this wasn't a multi-day job, you could just unlink it by pulling that second day's line items out of it. So it does its best guess in terms of segments and multi-day jobs. Also, when it loads, if it detects there's more visits to a job, it's going to go and set your done completion set to what it expects to see based on what Housecall Pro has in it. So again, if you have a 3-segment job or 4-segment job, and this was the first day, it would load up with all 4 segments linked to this one job and a 25% complete.
Does that answer the question there, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and for our business, like we'll add segments based on how long it's actually taking. So that won't cause any issues because when we pull shifts for future days, it will now see there's more segments in there and it will pull that additional information.
Correct. It literally goes and looks for that. The only thing you can do to really confuse it is if you start renaming the invoices, because Housecall Pro doesn't save literal jobs with segments that are connected in any way other than an invoice name. So if you have 4545-1 and you get 2 or 3 segments and then rename it to, Josh's job, then those segments won't line up in terms of a name. So Bonus Up won't be able to understand they're the same thing. So most people don't go messing with invoice numbers. As long as you don't do that, it's going to be smart and say, hey, I'm part of that job. And again, even if it does go and grab it and decide, hey, this is a separate thing, you can always switch and say, no, use this job that's related to it. So it's always right there as a simple button click.
Awesome. Any other questions before we conclude?
Just real quick, I got a question.
Yeah.
How's it going with your alpha guys? How's the response been? Are they is it integrating pretty good for them? Is it working for them pretty nicely? What's your feedback so far?
The feedback so far has been really good. I've actually had to go and search it out because there hasn't been a lot of feedback. Particularly, we pushed another update last week, which added a lot of these features. So the feedback has been it's just working. The only concern that's been brought up is by one of our users who says when she was entering it manually, it was easier to make sure all of her jobs were profitable, whereas when it happens automatically, she has to make herself go and look. So, I mean, I think that's pretty good feedback in terms of how easy it is to use. And it's just that she likes to look at every single job and check her profitability against every single job, which she does do in finalized payouts as well. But ease of use was almost too easy was the one kind of negative feedback I got.
And that's the number that's in the bottom left corner, right, Keith? That's the direct labor that's showing here at a glance.
Yeah, so that's your direct labor for the job and your productivity for the job. So you can see at a glance where each job is at. And you can see when you edit jobs, it will go and fuzz it out because it's not sure what's happening yet. So until you save and reload, and once you save and reload, it'll pop back up again. Now I have it on a non-scored labor code right now, which is why I'm getting zeros.
Awesome. And yeah, that's kind of the whole point here is we just want this to be lightweight. And yes, it'll be a little bit in terms of just having to adapt your your flow and your use case. But the overall idea here is this is just going to happen largely behind the scenes. We have kind of intentionally slowed it down so that you have to log in and you have to load a day, just because we're dealing with people's pay, compensation, hours worked, etc. So we don't want this to just be like happening fully in the background. And I think also too, at the core of it, Bonus Up is meant to be a management tool that allows you to grow faster and make more money. So you still want to use it and you still have to, interact with it so that you can get the takeaways that it's suggesting. We are kind of moving in that direction though, of it will just auto load, and maybe even push out towards like email notifications if anything notable is happening for the owner or the managers. That's kind of the direction we're heading.
One final
Yes,
question for me, and I'll be done.
And then over to Adam.
Sorry. Yeah, just real quick. What can we do as Service Monster users to influence our leaders that we work with? Because they're very, very accessible to us. And if we can lobby on behalf of Bonus Up at all, obviously it would benefit us. What are your thoughts on that?
From what I recall, I believe Service Monster's APIs are fairly well documented and fairly available, which is kind of step one. There's kind of two different opinions that other softwares can have in terms of how well they play with others, right? And I think Service Monster is not bad. There are certain situations where, like we're dealing with Housecall Pro, where they made most of it available, but not the start and end times for the shifts. And that's going to be a pro vote request situation, and hopefully it's made available. Apparently we're not the only ones that have requested it. So we're kind of in that channel here, Dave.
Gotcha.
The
Okay.
next real big focus for the product, kind of behind the scenes here, is we're moving on to sales commission tracking. So we're essentially going to redeploy everything we've constructed for Bonus Up in a production sense and apply it to a sales commission sense. So the highlight reel, the app, the profile for each of your technicians, it will all be made available for your salespeople. And essentially then it becomes its almost own standalone product. At that point, we're trying to still rack our brains in terms of finding some sort of creative solution to bridge them together. And ultimately where we want to go with it is we want the data to be shared between the two sides. So then you could be in a position where you can see how profitable the jobs are of certain salespeople that they leave behind. Where right now, we ordinarily don't have access to that sort of information. That's kind of like full loop is what we're looking to bridge. Even certain creative things where we can tell, in terms of a heat map, where are your most profitable jobs over the course of the city and stuff like that. We can do a lot of fun things. And that's kind of the next step here.
Very good. Thank you.
And over to you, Adam.
Yeah, well, I'm glad Dave went first because it was kind of segueing into what I was asking too. And it's kind of an initiated question a little bit, so hopefully it's good for this meeting. We aren't members of Bonus Up, but we are, making a lot of moves, growing, and we are with currently as far as CRM with the customer factor. So my question is, and for other reasons, we are thinking about moving to either Jobber or Housecall Pro. So is that I just being uninitiated with Bonus Up, is that a pretty big deal with do you find a lot of your members will clock in with their CRM or use some other tool, or do a lot of them use Bonus Up? Because, I'm just wondering how big of a deal it is that you can't use the clock in, clock out data from Housecall Pro right now. And of course you said it might change, but, I just want a little more.
I think where I go with it, and then I'll let Keith weigh in. We're going to construct it in a way that's like very lightweight. So essentially you have all your technicians there, you can tab through, and if it's 8 to 4:30, you can just tab, start end time, start end time, start end time. So really it's going to be pretty lightweight even in the end. You can also set defaults, whereas if your guys always work the same time or gals out in the field always work the same time, it's obviously less editing required. I would suspect that they're going to make it available at some point, but I wouldn't use it as like a hindrance. This is like light years of steps forward in terms of like a lighter weight handling and maintenance of the system. And if it's just start and end times, I wouldn't worry too much about that. And if it is something that bothers you, then use the Bonus Up app. It's included free right now. We're going to be changing that, but it's available, you know.
All right, thanks.
Keith, do you have anything else to add on that?
Not really. I think, the only thing I say, and I say to all new users, is the first time you enter a shift, it takes half an hour and it doesn't feel great. And as you get faster and faster, I can enter a fairly complex shift straight from Jobber with a piece of paper, timesheets, and do that in about 30 to 45 seconds in the old version. In the new version, changing start and end each day, you want to log in, you want to load that shift, and you want to check to make sure your profitability is looking good, make sure the bonuses are right anyway. You're not adding much time at all. So, I mean, I'd like the automatic fill everything in for me, obviously, but in terms of it being a barrier, it's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's
guys.
great PA work too. Stuff like that is just, you can build it into your workflow for the
Right.
short term here. Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I had one final question. How does this work with reporting? I think I noticed that there's now a job number field and a customer name field, whereas before I was putting like my customer name and date in the same field so I could distinguish between different jobs on different dates. And how does that work with reporting?
So we haven't gone through the job reporting, the job report essentially. So what's going to be added is if you've been to the job report, you can search by different things. So there's going to be a search by customer as well. It's not going to go back in time in Housecall Pro and look for past jobs that aren't in Bonus Up, but we can sort things by the customer ID as well. So you can pull all the jobs for customer Bob Smith and have them all list out with your profitability and everything in one place just per customer.
And it will have just different dates on there for that customer, those jobs?
Well, different dates and different job names. So every job name is unique. So if there's a reason you have a non-unique job name pulling in from Housecall Pro, you can always distinguish it in the shift entry there, and it will show separately.
Any
If you
final
have something
questions before we-
specific, send me an email of what's not working for you, and we can look at it.
So, as far as release date there, Keith, when are we going to push this to the accounts?
So as long as I don't break anything in the next 24 hours, this is getting pushed Thursday evening. So Bonus Up is going to go down. It's a migration for everyone's database, an update to the server. So Friday morning, you'll come into work and you'll have the option inside of settings to go and add your integration. So I'll just share my screen really briefly just to show you what that is. Essentially, you'll go to settings and there's going to be a really obvious CRM integrations. You're going to see your options. Right now, it's none in Housecall Pro. Jobber is coming soon. Timesheets. If you're on Housecall Pro, this is, again, you're stuck to the Bonus Up and default. We can't access Housecall Pro timesheets. You'll copy your API key in and you're good to go. When you do save that, test that, it will pull your list of employees and tell you who's matched. Email addresses do have to match coming across. So if they're not matched, you'll have to go and make sure you update that. And if you have active employees in Bonus Up who are not currently there, you'll have to check to make sure that you're not not tracking people in your CRM. So it's that easy. It's CRM integrations Friday morning.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, we're super excited about this. In total, we've probably had, I would say, a good number of people that came through and, used Bonus Up and then ultimately just found like it was too much of a burden. They loved the information, but it was just too heavy, too much requirement of them. And this attacks that objective or that objection rather. And that's pretty much been the sole one. So we're really excited about what this is going to do for the product, for the user. And ultimately, our core goal here is to help other companies grow faster and make more money, be more profitable, right? So if we can, make that more accessible, which is what these APIs and integrations are going to be doing, then that's something that's very exciting for us. We're on a path to pay out $50 million in production bonuses to the technicians that are on the ground level. And that's something that's a huge, lofty goal, but it's something we're very excited about. And it's a really cool way to affect the world in a positive way. So if no one else has any other thoughts, comments, or questions, we appreciate you signing on. And you can look forward to seeing this in your account on Friday.
Looks great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.